Welcome back to Granite City Comic Con. Sat here with Robert Llewellyn. Welcome to Aberdeen.
Thank you very much. No, it's good to be here.
Good. Robert Llewellyn, known mostly for playing the mechanoid Crichton in the sci-fi series Red Dwarf, but you also hosted Scrapheap Challenge for a long time, and you're a good author and lots of other things you've done as well.
Yes.
we can chat through that.
Mark's got the book.
I've got the book, yeah.
You got the book.
Actually, I've got the original somewhere at home, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, right.
So I had to get the new one. Yeah, I adored Scrapheap Challenge in my youth. I mean, growing up in the 90s, it was that engineering thing that was just on the TV. It was fantastic, and it was interesting to see that. And at the same time, because I was a fan of Red Dwarf as well,
right.
Had Craig Charles going with Robot Wars as well, which along the same sort of idea, sort of engineering, building things, not always going as planned, but really entertaining. How did Scrapheap Challenge come around for you?
Well, it was quite a long gestation period because I did some programs for the Open University that are still occasionally on. I'm going to sneeze. Just warning. Oh, that's good.
Bless you.
Make that into a vine. It's on industry.
Got permission.
I have to have one sneeze a day, and I hadn't had one today. So there we go.
Well, it's got out the way now.
There we go.
Won't happen during the panel.
Don't think there's another one coming. No, good. Sorry, Scrapheap. So I'd done programs on. I'd always been really interested in science and engineering as a kid, and and it was something that kind of disappeared from my life because I accidentally leant against the. Really, this is what it felt like. I was in an alleyway at the back of Showbiz, and I leant against a door, and they hadn't locked it, and I fell in. I mean, it was definitely not a plan to be. I was never an actor. I didn't do acting at school. I didn't do drama or anything. I wanted to be an engineer, and I built go-karts and weird stuff when I was a kid. And my brother is a proper engineer who actually builds Formula One racing cars, and that's been his career his whole life. So it was the last thing I expected to end up being on telly. It was not something I wanted to do. But through doing Red Dwarf and other various things, I did these series of programs for the Open University, which are about all different subjects in the sort of broader science and engineering field, which no one ever, very few people see. And through that, I met Kathy Rogers, who was my original co-presenter on Scrapheap, and it was her idea. So we were talking about how we'd get joined together entertainment and engineering, and it was impossible. This is over years, and she then saw Apollo 13, the movie. Yeah. And that was the kind of kernel of the idea, was that in the story, the real story of Apollo 13, the astronauts are going to die, and the scientists on the ground know what they've got in the spaceship. They build the CO2 scrubbers, and it was like that kind of remote advice giving was the original idea of Scrapheap, which it then evolved very differently into what we saw. And it was a one-off, weird, quirky Channel 4 series that I'd done one the year before about how to use your camcorder more imaginatively, a series called iCamcorder. Okay. So it was before the advent of mobile phones. And I'd done another one. I can't remember what the other one was. I did a few... Hollywood Science, which was a program about testing the real science behind stunts in Hollywood. Yeah. Which was a hugely successful show on the BBC, but because of a row in the BBC, we only made 2 series of that. Okay. But as an example of that is The Bus in Speed, the movie with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. Would it really be able to jump across the gap?
The gap in the bridge.
And it was a proper, really clever scientist, a physicist who works at Sussex Uni, who worked it out, and it is possible for the bus, but it'll have to be doing over 500,000 miles an hour, so about 570,000 miles an hour, and it would then make that leap. Anything less than that, it would just go. Yeah. So it was, testing whether it was Hollywood science or real science.
Okay,
so out of all that, then Scrapheap came, and I thought it was another one of those quirky, one-off, weird things.
But then it just took off.
And it took off, and it was extraordinary. We did an American version called Junkyard Wars, which was, again, incredibly popular in the States. And I did it for 10 years, which I thought, that stuff doesn't happen in telly. And I've just been really lucky. The two main shows I've been involved with, Red Dwarf and Scrapheap Challenge, lasted much longer than most television shows, which has been extraordinary.
I've been really, really happy the last couple of weeks because sort of researching stuff to chat to you about, and then I end up finding all the series of Scrapheap Challenge are on all four. So I've been making my way through them.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. Oh, brilliant.
So I've been making my way through the series again.
Oh, wow. I must tell, because people say, I want to see Scrapheap. So it's on all four.
All four, every series is on.
That is brilliant.
Up to 11. So.
Oh, good.
So it's great, yeah. They're talking about a revival of it as well, aren't they? They're trying to.
Well, I hope so. I really think they should bring it back, because it's had about a month ago I was at Jaguar Land Rover talking about electric cars, and there's a very cool electric Range Rover being built at the moment, just saying.
Yeah.
And with the engineers there, one of the kind of head engineers, so like a proper grown-up bloke with an amazingly good job, he said, I'm only here because of Scrapheap. That's what inspired him to be an engineer. And I go, bloody hell, they really should be doing that again, because it was very noticeable. A lot of people like university lecturers who teach engineering all said they've had an amazing rise in interest of people doing their course.
It steered my career path as well. I mean, I studied architecture, and that was kind of put me on the route towards engineering.
Right.
And I also had a love of art and design, so kind of the amalgamation of the two.
Yes.
But Scrapheap was fantastic.
Very good.
So you were. Obviously, you were one of the first, possibly first adopters of online video as well.
Of my generation,
your generation,
a lot of young people.
Yeah,
adapted it very quickly.
YouTube and iTunes and things. Because with Carpool, that was kind of something you just did to try it out, didn't you?
To try it out, just to see if it would work. And it was the idea of, having funny conversations. I mean, having funny conversations with people and thinking, how could I make that online? If I have a chat show like this, getting a studio and getting people in is really hard to
it costs a lot of money, and
it costs a lot of money, and you've got to have some space, and then you've got to arrange that they get to wherever it is. And when that was from Scrapheap, the cameras we used on Scrapheap, they call them suicide cameras, because we strapped them to the machines.
Okay.
And then they quite often got
destroyed.
Yeah. In fact, very often got. So you'd walk, when we finished filming like on an old airfield, I'd walk across the tarmac, and there'd be like bits of twisted, busted camera just lying around that people were sweeping up. So I got 2 second-hand Scrapheap cameras. Okay. Which were tiny little lipstick cameras that are stuck in the windscreen. The first 2, which I will never release. One is with my son, who has an amusing variant of Tourette's, which means that when he was about 15, he couldn't pronounce a sentence without at least 5 expletives in it.
Fair enough.
So it's a very sweary episode. And then there's my wife in quite a bad mood. I recorded us driving to London once with her in quite a bad mood, going, "Why have you got to put cameras in here? I don't want to be on the telly."
I was going to ask if either of them are aware you were recording them.
No, she knew they were there. But what is remarkable is you forget they're there, and that's when I really knew it would work. And so then I started doing, originally just mates that I'd worked with. And then eventually it got to be people, I'd asked people that I'd never met, like Sir Patrick Stewart.
Who lived
down the road from me. And I said, and that was through a mutual mate who actually knew him. And I said, do you think he'd do it? He wouldn't do it. He's proper. He's really posh. And then he rings me up and he goes, "Hello, Robert, it's Patrick." What? Well, if I didn't, you bring me over because I've got to go to the shops on Tuesday. And I had to drop everything, put out the car, drive to his house. And he was so charming. It was, that was the one where I was genuinely really nervous because I'd never met him. And he was like proper. He's proper grown-up actor.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
I drove him down the post office.
Brilliant.
He got some milk.
Yeah.
So that helped. Like Stephen Fry, when I did him, he had to get from BBC Television Centre to Thames Studios, which is on the River Thames. Okay. Whatever it's called, London Studios it's called now, and that he was going to do that journey anyway. Yeah. So then I talked to his people.
Oh, okay, yeah, had to go.
But I'd met Stephen a few times before, and he was absolutely charming, and he was just outside Television Centre, kind of looking. I said, "Stephen," he went, "Oh, hello." Got in the car and off we went. And that was it. And he was going to do that journey anyway. So it really
so just added extra.
I think I made about 130 episodes altogether.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to do some more now.
Oh, really?
For Fully Charged. So what grew out of that was the
Fully Charged show. Yeah.
Electric vehicles,
renewables.
I've got 2 people I've booked up. I'm not going to say they are. I mean, who aren't kind of TV stars, but are very well-known figures in the industrial design and science community.
Oh wow, interesting.
So I mean, that's kind of what I always wanted to do, was get people who aren't necessarily bloody comedians. That was a mistake when I said to someone, I can't remember who it was, someone famous, the idea of Carpool is that I get famous people and interesting people. That isn't a good way to sell it to someone who's famous.
Because they're not mutually exclusive. Oh dear.
That was I wasn't good at that.
Yes, I was actually going to move on to tweak out fully charged in that as well, because you're a champion of renewable energies and technologies, and I've got an interest in that as well through my studies and stuff. And fully charged, that's really interesting. I've been subscribed to that for a while now.
Right.
I quite enjoy. I mean, electric cars are great. They're definitely the future. I mean, I work for the Grampian Transport Museum as well, which is it's a transport museum just 30 miles out of Aberdeen. And we have a main event every year. And a couple of years ago, we had Tesla come up with a couple of their supercars before they were popular, before people knew that electric cars were...
Could be cool.
Not could be cool. Could be fast. Could actually perform. And we had Tesla, like this Tesla car, because the acceleration, it was outranking Ferraris around the track, and people were really astounded.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you're great interest in all that. How did you fall into that? Because you're a bit of a petrol head before, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was very much through Scrapheap. It was, I mean, because a lot of that technology and innovation came out of California, and particularly out of Silicon Valley, rather than the traditional automotive industry. So Tesla grew out of people who designed and built laptops. So they knew about battery management, they knew how batteries worked, they understood how computers worked. So they're more computers on wheels than cars in a way. Of course, yeah. And that was something that the old car manufacturers couldn't get their head around. Oh, we'll take the engine out, and then we'll put an electric motor and some batteries in. And that was as far as they could get. And then the rest of the car was exactly the same, which is dated and clunky. And I mean, I have a Model S, and it updates all the time. It's constantly like a phone. It updated the other day, and every time it updates, it's not like a massive change. Yeah, but it works better. Yeah,
it just changes the management, the way it controls the components.
Yeah, I mean, so it isn't, and they're an extraordinary company. But I mean, I'm very keen not to just push Tesla.
Of course, there's a lot of other people,
and there's a lot of other people who are doing amazing things. I think what BMW are doing is great with their electric vehicles, and really good versions. And also that show isn't just about cars.
Yes, it's renewable energy.
In a sense, what happened with me was I had a ride in an electric car in America in 2001, with all the assumptions that we all would have about it, that it's going to be slow and it will run out and all those things. And that car was a sub 3 second 0 to 60 two-seater sports car. And it was terrifying because I'm not a big speed freak, but you, with a petrol engine, even a high-powered, high-performance car, you've got so much warning
with the
before
sound,
it goes, with vroom, 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 all that stuff. This was utter silence, and then, and that was burning off Ferraris and American muscle cars, and it was the most ugly little yellow thing. It was an experimental kit car. I mean, it wasn't, and that had actual Sanyo laptop batteries.
Oh wow, powering it
in their original packs, all strapped together very neatly, very not Scrapheap-ish, very well done bit of engineering.
But it was a bit of a hodgepodge together.
Yeah, but the actual drivetrain was what eventually was installed into the Tesla Roadster, the first Tesla car. So it was a very quick little car, and that kind of made me think, all those questions, why would you bother? Because at the time I was renting a Mustang, a 1969 fastback Mustang, for the time I was working in Los Angeles, which was just like, oh my god, this
big
car,
proper muscle car,
if you bit the throttle, the whole car shook and twisted. An amazing old bit of terrible thing to drive. I mean, appalling brakes. The steering was
won't go around a corner even if you tried.
Corners were lethal in it. Absolutely. Straight line, very good, and great noise. So it wasn't like, it took me a long time to kind of work out where the energy came from that went into a thing like a Ford Mustang, and where the energy came from that goes into an electric car. And that whole debate is now becoming clear, I think, for the general public. It's a very complicated thing to think about, and easy excuses that the petrol or the oil industry, which is very big in Aberdeen, and the motor industry have put, they're powered by coal, and all those sort of things, and you go, oh God, that sounds plausible. And then you look into it, and you go, no, they're not. And even if they are, they're still cleaner.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just, it's a really difficult thing to communicate. That's really why I do the shows, to kind of try and argue the science of it, as opposed to the opinion of it.
It's a really interesting show. I mean, I came across it when you did something on wind power a while ago.
Right. Yeah.
So it's good stuff. Good to see that you are pushing, that people are pushing.
What's great about that is how quickly it's growing now. I've been doing it for years, but this year it's really kind of taken off, which is really encouraging, and the funding of it, because that's always been difficult. Because YouTube is fantastic. It gets you to a huge audience for nothing, and it doesn't cost you anything, or it's very cheap to do, and there's no income. And then you end up spending thousands of hours a year working on it, and there's
nothing. You don't get any return from it apart from what you produce. So as well as your work in TV, you've written several books, a few plays and things. But you most recently finished your News From trilogy, which is quite interesting, looking at sort of a utopian sci-fi kind of, almost utopian sci-fi kind of future. Because the thing, I must confess, I haven't read it, but I do want to after sort of researching it a bit. But a lot of utopian sci-fi, I know it kind of presents a world that could be perfect, but then there's all the inherent problems of sacrificing freedoms and things. Whereas you've taken a lot more. I mean, it's because I didn't know there was a term to describe it, but there is, called Protopian. So it's progressing towards so it's absolutely anything but a perfect world. It is a flaw, because human beings, by our very definition, are flawed. Of course. And we have issues, and they haven't disappeared in the worlds that I try and describe. But it was a sort of, in a way, a thought experiment, but writ large, with a story behind it, that about how we could live, with huge population, with no starvation, with a little bit more equality in the world, but still with the benefits of modern technology and technology that doesn't destroy the planet that we live on, that kind of lives in harmony with it. And it's it's the easiest thing to make fun of, and the hardest thing to kind of create a plausible alternative to the system that we're in now, which, however you think about it and whatever political views you have, doesn't work very well. And I think people like the recent story with Sir Philip Green, who owned British Home Stores. Is such a savage, brutal, uncaring theft by a very rich man of a lot of very poor people. I know.
And it's intolerable, and yet yet he hasn't broken the law. So if the law allows him to do that, there's something wrong with the law and the society that we live in. That he took all the money, and that's what's happened in my lifetime. I think when I was born, there was a genuine struggle for equality across the social spectrum. And respect for people who work hard and earn a living and can have a house that they can afford. And that is gone in my lifetime. I'm 60 years old. That is really gone. So now the rich people have everything. They've taken everything. They want all of it. No, not that bit. You can't even have that bit. And what's happening in London now, I think, is so savage. And I'm glad it's only happening in London, really. It's the worst place. But they're knocking down council estates, they're knocking down public housing and building exclusive flats for people that no one can afford unless you're a Russian.
Exactly.
And it's so 700 tower blocks being built in London.
That's extremely depressing.
It's extremely brutally depressing, and it's unsustainable, because eventually, as has happened repeatedly in history, when people are ground down that brutally and that much, they kick back, and shit will go down. Which is really sad, because we were doing much better. I think the lives of someone in 1960 was such a massive improvement to the lives of someone in 1860, which was a brutal, uncaring, you know, very un-egalitarian society. And we kind of made that, and it's been clawed back by the elite, by the rich, who've said, no, we want all of the money, not just some of it, we want all of it.
Last thing before if I could just quickly talk
sorry,
about
I really went off on a rant.
Sorry, very quickly talk
I just read about it this morning.
Very quickly talk about Red Dwarf, because we've got new series coming.
Yeah, that's two new series.
Two new series, of course, yeah. And they've both been recorded, yeah?
They've both been recorded, series 11 and 12.
Yep.
So 12 episodes.
Yep.
I think that there's 2 or 3 episodes in that will be in the all-time top 10 best ever Red Dwarfs ever.
Oh, fantastic!
There's one in particular that is my absolute favourite. And the only way that we can judge whether they work or not, and you know, who knows with the finished thing, it may be different. But when you know, there's one episode where I make an entrance in one scene. I can't tell you anything about it, but we had, and there were, so Lister, Cat, and Rimmer are standing in a row, and they're all looking at me, and we had to wait and wait so long because the audience was screaming with laughter for so long that we couldn't say anything. We just were looking at each other, and I'm nearly cracking up because their faces just make me laugh.
Yeah.
Chris's face. Chris just has to stand there, and he makes me laugh. And Danny was hysterical, and Craig was brilliant in it. And it was that moment where you go, that hasn't happened for a while. Where they will have to cut that because it's probably a minute and a half
of just laughter.
We're just standing doing nothing, nothing at all. And there's this. And the stories are brilliant. The scripts are brilliant. There's some fantastic guest stars who are just off the scale. I mean,
superb. I'm really, really excited for that.
Yeah, no, I think it should be good. It goes out in September on Dave.
On Dave.
Yeah, it'll be on Dave.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you very much for coming along.
Yeah, now you'll tell me that Philip Green is your dad.
No.
And I'm in real trouble.
I know that now. The mark of the Green Dynasty.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here at Kansas City Comic Con.
Thank you. You've been a pleasure and both a famous and interesting.
Thank you. 5, 6, 7, 8, and I had breakfast. It was nice.
What'd you have?
Some fruit, some yogurt. That was the healthy bit, and then like more bacon than I should have done because it was free. It's on a plate. It's there. Looking at me. Oh, you've got to have good breakfast.
Can't help yourself with free bacon.
No, it's very difficult.
That's my thing with Aberdeen. I've tried to have every full Scotch breakfast available. I will pay for it. You only take 3 times as much to it's free.